Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. A project we've been talking about a fair amount recently is the Intermodal Transit Center, which, for those who may not be familiar, is a project to develop a facility that is envisioned as a transit facility featuring administrative and passenger service areas, exterior covered passenger boarding areas, bicycle parking facilities, and secure transit vehicle parking that will serve as a link between transportation service providers to facilitate the seamless integration of transportation services on the Palouse. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overall view of the vision statement on the project. The council is probably well aware at this point we have broken the project into two phases, and phase one was the facility programming, site selection, concept design, construction cost estimate, and operational cost estimate stage of the project. And as you may recall, earlier last month we reported that and phase two, let me just continue, would move us into final construction, drawing preparation, bidding the project through construction. We gave a report to the council in early of last month where we had reported that phase one progress to date included the formation of a technical advisory committee and 4 meetings of that technical advisory group. We had completed the facility program assessment. We had completed the level 1, 2, and 3 site assessments. We had held 2 public open houses on the project. We had identified the preferred site selection, completed the traffic impact assessment on that site, and we had initial facility concept design. Since that time, we have moved that design a little bit farther, and what's remaining is to complete the TAC meeting number 5, which is scheduled for tomorrow, and our final open house meeting that we'll conduct later in this month. And we are rapidly approaching the finalization of our concept design on the project. And along that, we'll be finalizing the construction costs and operational costs associated with that element. And the environmental review is our last remaining step then in phase one. I would like to recognize the people who have committed their time and effort to the Technical Advisory Committee, which includes J.R. Van Tassel from Regional Public Transportation, Peg Motley from Wheatland Express, Charlie Neal from Northwest Trailways, Brett Dillon from the University of Idaho's Architectural and Engineering Services, Carl Root as Director of the University of Idaho Parking and Transportation Services, Jennifer Barrett as a Latah County Commissioner representative, Samantha Seifer has served as a representative of ASUI for the Associated Students of the University of Idaho, and Mike McGann has served as representative of Transportation Commission, and Gary Riedner as the City Supervisor. As we began the site selection process, we evaluated the location and existence of all transit services and functions within the community, and what's represented on the map are the current service routes of both the east route, the west route of the fixed transit trailways that operates on Highway 95, Highway 8, and the Vandal shuttle service that operates in the Intercore campus. And we identified that there was nodes of interconnection of the different transit providers and routes located near the core of the margin between the University of Idaho campus and the downtown area. Through the site selection process, the TAC examined 5 potential sites, and as they narrowed it down, focused really on the core where we saw those interlaps of the different transit service providers. And so sites 3 and 5 were selected as finalists to proceed to the level 3 assessment stage. Ultimately, as reported at the last council briefing on the project, the TAC recommended the selection of site number 3, which is the northeast corner of the intersection of Railroad and Sweet Avenue on the University of Idaho campus. And we also reviewed the conceptual floor plan at the last meeting, and we looked at some sample elevations, of which the elevation number 4 garnered the most votes on the council, as well as the TAC meeting that followed the next day. And we also reported at that last meeting that the remaining steps on the project, significant milestones, were to secure the Board of Regents' permission and approval to use the property for this purposes, and we were targeting the June meeting of the Board of Regents of this upcoming this summer. We would need to confirm available funding by July, move into phase 2, which would put us into construction design, bid doc, and spec preparation in August, and that final design work would be completed between then and early winter to get us in a position to bid the project in the best time possible, which would be January or February of 2012. We then would be scheduling project construction, which would be anywhere between a 6 and 7 month window for construction of the facility, and allow us to be at completion by the end of that calendar year. As we've moved through the project, and certainly with the selection of a University of Idaho held property for the location of the facility, Staff, both with the university and city, have been exploring what were some of the best options available for the joint facility ownership and operation. One of the elements that was both within the Tiger grant that was, I think, critical in getting the grant funded was really the joint partnership opportunity with this facility, where it was intended to house the city's transit provider with Musco Valley Transit, as well as University of Idaho's parking and transportation services, and integrate other carriers and providers, Wheatland Trailways, as well as the city van pool and other services. And so that was a key element, but certainly we needed to iron down the details of how the facility was going to be owned and operated. Staff has come to the conclusion that we believe that it appears the university would be the best ownership entity due to the fact that obviously they own the property there and are not inclined to transfer or sell the property. Its connection, the facility will be connected to the University of Idaho's utility systems, just because those are the utility systems that are present adjacent to the site. The continuity of site and grounds maintenance and snow removal, and this connection to the University of Idaho owned and operated parking facility being the Lot 60 that's directly adjacent to the site to the east. In our view, the facility certainly is a joint facility to be managed and operated jointly between the university and the city, but certainly there does need to be an entity that officially owns the property. The facility, as I mentioned, would be jointly operated, and each entity would share our proportional share of the operation and maintenance expenses of the facility. And occupancy of the building is roughly 50% each between the city of Moscow and the University of Idaho. The agreements that we have discussed, and there are a series of agreements we think would be best served to achieve the ends that have been identified, would be a long-term agreement, so it would allow for the facility and its use for, at the very least in the first term, 50 years and potentially beyond that point, which is to be defined as the functional life of the facility, looking at an opportunity to renew that lease if the facility continues to serve its function and continues to serve the purpose for the community in that location. 50 years is a very long horizon to understand whether that's going to be the best location for a transit facility into the future. As staff has reviewed this, we have identified that we anticipate 4 necessary agreements to achieve this. The first is a memorandum of understanding, or the University of Idaho has suggested a memorandum of agreement that would memorialize the intent of the project and the responsibilities and roles for each party involved, just so that we have a clear understanding of what everybody's role is in this project. The second would be a short-term property lease that would be a 5-year lease, at least from the university to the city, for the purposes of allowing the city access to the property and the contractors and other agents of the city access to the property for the purposes of constructing the facility on the property. The third would be a long-term facility lease that would secure the city's right for the use of the interior portions of the building, as well as the exterior site areas associated and related to the operation of the transit center for the long term, that being the first term of the lease, 50 years, and the opportunity to extend beyond that point. And the last would be an ordinance of conveyance upon completion. It is something that we cannot prospectively convey to the university for ownership until it exists in presence. So certainly there would be, it's recommended by the city attorney that we have a final step that would just clear up any questions about ownership or status of the facility. And that would be that upon completion. So this evening we're certainly wishing to discuss the concept with the council and ultimately, hopefully, seek the council's consent of the conceptual model for the ownership and operations facility so that staff of both the city and the university can pursue the development of these agreements in advance of the region's upcoming meeting in June. So with that, I would be happy to try to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Bill. Council members have questions? Sue?
If we convey this building upon completion to the university, who's responsible for the exterior maintenance for the 50 years?
It would be jointly, that responsibility would fall jointly between the city and the university. So when we say that we proportionally share the facility maintenance, that's interior as well as exterior.
Walter?
Exterior building or grounds as well?
Grounds as well. So we would, as we define it, directly around the perimeter of the building. So there is going to need to be exterior hardscape maintenance periodically, so that's sweeping or power washing periodically. But as we get beyond the building disturbance area or the concrete areas, we won't have any responsibility beyond that point. But snow removal activities, I mean, all the typical and ordinary expenses of operating a facility, we would have a responsibility to share that.
To share the cost, but
Correct.
not the performance.
Correct.
University of Idaho snowplows would plow the sidewalks.
Correct.
We would share in that cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it could be either, my presumption is, at this point in the stage, when we talk about exterior site maintenance and snow removal, we're anticipating that it would be U of I staff. I mean, it could be a third party that we would both contract with and share that cost, but at this point in time, the perception has been that it would be University of Idaho staff that would undertake those activities.
Walter?
If I may, ma'am. The city is to be the quote-unquote owner during the construction, so the city would contract with Acme or whoever construction that gets the low bid to build the facility.
Correct.
And then the question I had asked you earlier last week, Bill, before it went before Public Works, we are certain that the grantor is okay with us transferring this building to another party after it's built with grant funds.
We have a conference call tomorrow morning to go over a draft template MOU and the proposal that we've discussed this evening. We have discussed in concept levels with FTA staff. They have been in general agreement with what's being proposed. We're actually having a conference call with City Council, University Council, and FTA Council just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So our understanding to date is, yes, they are in concurrence with the proposal, and we will get final confirmation tomorrow morning.
Okay, because, and I'm not saying you can't. I work with grants. I know there are some grants that I get that you cannot transfer things out. This one may very well be one that you can, and there's no problem. Is the reason that the ordinance of conveyance would be used is that this is a government-to-government transaction, and it doesn't require any of the... Gary's nodding yes. Finish my question for me, Gary. What's the term? It doesn't require...
It doesn't require that it be sold in conformance with the ordinance or surplused and sold through a bid process.
Okay. So it's the fact that dealing with the U of I makes it okay to do it.
Yeah, there are specific instances when the city can transfer for certain purposes to other governmental entities, and this would be one of those cases.
Thank you.
Tom?
I'm not familiar with what all the rules are on campus for what can be served. I understand that you can't serve alcohol in certain buildings on campus, but I'm thinking about, in this particular case, food and drinks and so forth. And I don't know what their rules are, but I would, and I've talked about the food thing a lot of times in the past, and I'm just going to bring it up again, that I want to make sure that our agreement allows for food to be available as close to the customers as possible. And if it's possible in the building, that would be great. It'd be better than if more than just a potato chip dispenser. I would rather see real food available, real drinks available for people that are waiting for buses or trying to get to the next thing. So I'm hoping that the MOU allows for food and beverages to be, potentially served in the building or close on campus around in that area as possible.
We have had that discussion with the university because of their relationship with Sodexo and some of the limitations they have. A potential tenant lease space that could serve food is programmed within the facility, and it's included within the area that would be the city's leasehold portion of the building. If it's within a university facility they own or control, essentially, I think they have to have Sodexo be the provider for that. It wouldn't preclude the service or delivery of food or drinks in the building, but they would have to be the provider.
So so you're saying it might have to be Sodexo if it's on the university side of it?
Correct, but the leasehold as we have it right now, the design of the facility and the anticipated lease boundaries would have it on the city side, which means we would have greater flexibility of who might go there.
I think the key is going to be flexibility, not exclusion of Sodexo, just that there's some flexibility for something.
Exactly.
And it may be them, it may be somebody else. I just want to make sure that that's possible. Thank you.
Sam?
Thank you, Mayor Cheney. Bill, I'm so sorry. In my opinion, fellow council members and staff, this building in 50 years is going to have value. And the city has generated approximately $2 million toward the construction of this facility through grants and through city dollars. And I want to go on record as stating that I think the city should retain a percentage of ownership in it, so that after the lease period, no matter what it be, 1 year or 50, the city can see some return if that's the way the city chooses to go in 50 years, and can get some value back out of a $2 million contribution.
Looks like Gary has something to add to that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think as Bill stated in his PowerPoint presentation, the discussions that we're having with the university are that we have the ability to continue to utilize the building through its usable life. So presuming that that will continue to be used as a transit center and it has a useful life beyond 50 years, then hopefully our negotiations will end up that we get to use it as long as it has useful life. If it doesn't, and it's obsolesced and it's being torn down, then the only residual value is the land that remains in the ownership of the university. So it's just a situation where we want to be able to use it for what it was intended for.
Absolutely, and you're making some presumptions, and I'm making a different presumption. My presumption is it's going to have value in the future. A lot of the money that's going to construct the darn thing has come through city effort, hard work of staff, city councils in the past, and I think that's worth something. That's my point.